Starting off this video very simply, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review. This is one where it just feels difficult to talk about without talking about the ending because it colors the entire film. I will say this is a movie that you don't want spoiled for you, so if you haven't seen it yet and you haven't had it spoiled for you, I would go watch it if you're interested in seeing it. Don't let anybody spoil it for you because it will change how you view the movie. Just go see it if you're interested in seeing it. Presence is Steven Soderbergh's new POV horror movie. The film follows an unseen entity that occupies a house when a troubled family moves in. Off the bat, I was so interested in seeing how this was gonna play out. I really couldn't fathom how the movie was going to be scary when we're seeing everything through the eyes of the thing that is supposed to be scary. But it ended up being different than what I was expecting, and not in a bad way, not in the worst way. Some of it was good, some of it was not so good. Let's talk about it. I'm gonna start with the good shit going on in this movie. One like kind of unexpected thing I really liked about this, and that I didn't kind of anticipate would be a big theme of this movie, is this idea of place. I'm definitely one that believes that like buildings, houses have energy, they have personality for lack of a better term. So any haunted house story that kind of explores those ideas, even just in subtext, is really interesting to me. And it was very strange to not be able to see the outside of the house until the very end. I feel like that's always a strong introduction in like haunting type horror movies, like seeing a house and having that thought as the audience member, like, oh yeah, that place is definitely haunted. And it was almost jarring to put the emphasis so definitively and so strongly on the presence and not on the place. Throughout the movie, I was questioning, like, is this entity even really connected to this house then? Or is it somebody in the family? You know, like one of those twists, which we've seen before. And then we finally see the outside of the house, not until the very end of the movie. And it was a super interesting moment where it's like, you see all of these things happening, you know that there's an entity in this house, and then it pulls away into this like overhead shot, so you get to see the outside of the house for a little bit. I was kind of just like, oh, it doesn't even look haunted at all. It was a really interesting way to like change your perspective on the haunted house tropes. The most surprising part of this movie though was the emphasis on trauma and how that maybe makes somebody more susceptible to a haunting or not. The family that moves in has its struggles. The daughter, Chloe, who is the focus of the haunting, has experienced tragedy in the form of her best friend and then another classmate dying suddenly, supposedly of an overdose. Super tragic. Her father seems to want to help his daughter through it, while Chloe's mother is way more concerned about Chloe's brother, Tyler, who is a star athlete, and they've just moved house, like to be in a different school district, I think, so he can do his sports thing. I can't remember the sport, but it was lots of like boy mom energy with her. That leads to a lot of tension in the house already, especially when the haunting kind of like makes itself known to everybody in the house and not just Chloe. So Chloe starts secretly seeing Tyler's friend Ryan, this just douchey blonde high school kid character, and we kind of start to understand like, oh, this is where the scares of the movie are gonna come from. Ryan, you know, exhibits more and more predatory behavior as the movie goes on, until the climax of the movie where he tries to kill her, and it's revealed that he's the one that killed her friend and her classmate. And that was the craziest reveal for me. The medium that ends up coming to the house like kind of sets us up with this idea that the entity doesn't know when it is, so it could be in the past as well. So I instantly thought Chloe, and I think that's what the movie is trying to make you think. Chloe is going to die and Chloe's haunting the house and she's trying to maybe stop what's happening. And especially because it seems very connected to her room and her specifically. In a twist I definitely didn't see coming, it ends up being Tyler. And Tyler is the entity that was watching her this entire time. That reveal added so much heart to the movie that I wasn't expecting, especially when you kind of like actively go to frame certain points of the movie that you just saw, like the entity destroying Tyler's room after Tyler was being mean to Chloe, to knocking over a drink that Ryan drugged and intended to give Chloe earlier on in the movie. Although that did bring into question for me, at the end, Ryan drugs her drink again, and entity Tyler is watching this and doesn't knock the drink over again, or doesn't try and stop her from drinking it. And I'm hoping the people watching this far have seen the movie, and maybe you can give me your theories on that in the comments. But the real thing haunting this family in this movie is trauma and their perceptions of one another. These things led Chloe to seeking, you know, momentary comfort from this predatory character Ryan, and the rest of her family was content to either ignore her, like her mother and her brother, or in her father's case, just kind of like not really try and have a deep conversation. Like he just checks in on her more often than her other family members, but doesn't really have a conversation with her. The problem with this movie, though, being entirely from the perspective of this entity being solely in this house only, we are missing lots of context for certain conversations and plot points. There are moments like the father talking to his lawyer friend about his wife doing something illegal, and like how would he be implicated in that, being the spouse. I assumed this had something to do with her work. Like we see her at one point like secretly deleting a bunch of emails, and she doesn't want him to see. Because we never see these characters outside of the home, we just have no idea like what she's doing. And you can kind of make assumptions that like maybe she is doing something not legal at her job to get more money, and that's how they were able to move school districts for Tyler. Not really sure. Where the lack of context was the biggest problem was the reveal that Ryan is the one that killed Chloe's friends and classmates. I feel like Ryan's and Chloe's conversations that we see prior to this moment don't really give us any clues. Like we just see him being a little predatory and weird, maybe when we see him drugging the drink the first time, but we're also not really given context to like how these girls died. It just says like overdose, but Chloe seems to not believe that. So it's like, I don't know, it didn't feel right to jump to that conclusion that like, oh, it's this kid, it's Ryan. And then when we get to that reveal that he's the one that did it, he's like suffocating her with saran wrap and monologuing like a comic book villain about it out of nowhere. And sure, we could have made that assumption like, well, yeah, he's a white blonde douchebag male character, of course he's the serial killer, but they're also in high school. So I feel like if you're gonna make that reveal that a minor is a serial killer, even if you know, straight white male is the demographic for being a serial killer, I feel like I need more context, because he's killed 2 people before trying to kill Chloe. Like that's pretty serious. Like I need a little bit more context. So I feel like seeing everything from the ghost point of view gimmick had its cool moments, but it also limited the movie in certain ways. Ultimately, I thought the movie was good. I don't think it was super groundbreaking necessarily, but I think it definitely deserves a nod for trying to do something a little bit different. I love that the story ultimately posits that the scariest thing is ultimately not a ghost, but misogyny in all of its forms. I know I'm gonna get some comments about that one, but I think it's pretty obvious from the obvious kind of character, Ryan, who is a psycho and likes to control women to a murderous degree. Tyler, who writes off his sister's behavior as attention seeking, and Chloe's mother, who's internalized misogyny just gets her to the point where she doesn't even want to deal with Chloe and just keeps saying she just needs time because she'd rather ignore her and let Chloe deal with it on her own. And I support that message. That is the scariest thing in this movie. I can't wait to hear everybody's thoughts, what everybody thinks of Presence. I feel like this is going to be a very polarizing movie. So if you've seen it, and I hope you have, if you made it this far through the video, please let me know in the comments what you thought. I will see you soon with another video. Until then, stay strange. Bye.